Chapter 1. The Mountain is You. There is nothing holding you back in life more than yourself. If there is an ongoing gap between where you are and where you want to be, and your efforts to close it are consistently met with your own resistance, pain, and discomfort, self sabotage is almost always at work. On the surface, self sabotage seems masochistic. It appears to be a product of self hatred, low confidence, or a lack of willpower. In reality, self sabotage is simply the presence of an unconscious need that is being fulfilled by the self sabotaging behavior. To overcome this, we must go through a process of deep psychological excavation. We must pinpoint the traumatic event, release unprocessed emotions, find healthier ways to meet our needs, reinvent our self image, and develop principles such as emotional intelligence and resilience. It is no small task, and yet this is the work that all of us must do at one point or another. Self sabotage is not always obvious at the onset. When Carl Jung was a child, he fell on the ground in school and hit his head. When he got hurt, he thought to himself, yes, maybe I won't have to go back to school now. Though he is known today for his insightful body of work, he actually didn't like school or fit in well with his peers. Shortly after his accident, Jean began experiencing sporadic and uncontrollable fainting spells. He unconsciously developed what we would call a neurosis and ultimately came to realize that all neuroses are substitutes for legitimate suffering. In Jung's case, he made an unconscious association between fainting and getting out of school. He came to believe that the fainting spells were a manifestation of his unconscious desire to get out of class, where he felt uncomfortable and unhappy. Likewise, for many people, their fears and attachments are very often just symptoms of deeper issues for which they do not have any better way to cope. Self sabotage is a coping mechanism. Self sabotage is what happens when we refuse to consciously meet our innermost needs, often because we do not believe we are capable of handling them. Sometimes we sabotage our relationships because what we really want is to find ourselves. Though we are afraid to be alone, sometimes we sabotage our professional success. What we really want is to create art, even if it will make us seem less ambitious by society's measures. Sometimes we sabotage our healing journey by psychoanalyzing our feelings because doing so ensures we avoid actually experiencing them. Sometimes we sabotage our self talk because if we believed in ourselves, we'll feel free to get back in the world and take risks, and that would leave us vulnerable. In the end, self sabotage is very often just a maladaptive coping mechanism, a way we give ourselves what we need without having to actually address what that need is. But like any coping mechanism, it is just that, a way to cope. It's not an answer, it's not a solution, and it does not ever truly solve a problem. We are merely numbing our desires and giving ourselves a little taste of temporary relief. Self sabotage comes from irrational fear. Sometimes, or most, sabotaging behaviors are really the result of long held and unexamined fears we have about the world and ourselves. Perhaps it is the idea that you are unintelligent, unattractive, or disliked. Perhaps it is the idea of losing a job, taking an elevator, or committing to a relationship. In other cases, it can be more abstract, such as the concept of someone coming to get you, coming to get you, violating your boundaries, getting caught, or being wrongly accused. Those beliefs become attachments over time. For most people, the abstract fear is really a representation of a legitimate fear because it would be too scary to actually dwell on the real fear. We project those feelings onto issues or circumstances that are less likely to occur. If a situation has an extremely low likelihood of becoming reality, it therefore becomes a safe thing to worry about because subconsciously we already know it isn't going to happen. Therefore, we have an avenue to express our feelings without actually endangering ourselves. For example, if you are someone who is deeply afraid of being a passenger in a car, like myself, maybe your real fear is a loss of control or the idea that someone or something else is controlling your life. Perhaps the fear is of moving forward, and the moving car is simply a representation of that. So, I have a fear of dentists, and I was at the dentist, and I closed my eyes. I have to keep telling myself, I'm safe, I'm safe. I recognize that it was because I don't have any control over what is happening. Someone is taking charge and doing all that they want to do to get my teeth clean, or but it just feels uncomfortable. I can't move, and I'm in somebody else's. I'm under someone else's control, and I recognize that that was my actual fear of going to the dentist. How many years now? And I just realizing that. If you were aware of the real issue, you could begin working to resolve it. Perhaps by identifying the ways you are giving up your power or being too passive. However, if you aren't aware of the real problem, you'll continue to spend your time trying to convince yourself to not be triggered and anxious while riding in the car and finding that it only gets worse. If you try to fix a problem on the surface, you will always come up against the wall. This is because you're trying to rip off a band aid before you have a strategy to heal the wound. Self sabotage comes from unconscious negative associations. Self sabotage is also one of the first signs that your inner narrative is outdated, limiting, or simply incorrect. Your life is defined not only by what you think about it, but also what you think of yourself. That's my dog, Queen. I don't know what she's whining about. She's chasing our tail. Anyway, your life is defined not only by what you think about it, but also what you think of yourself. Your self concept is an idea that you have spent your whole life building. I think I'm going to stop and give her some attention. Where were we? Your life is defined not only by what you think about it, but also what you think of yourself. Your self concept is an idea that you have spent your whole life building. It was created by piecing together inputs and influences from those around you, what your parents believed, what your peers thought, what became self evident through personal experience, and so on. Your self image is difficult to adjust because your brain's confirmation bias works to affirm your pre existing beliefs about yourself. When we self sabotage, it is often because we have a negative association between achieving the goal we aspire to and being the kind of person who has or does that thing. If your issue is that you want to be financially stable and yet you keep ruining every effort you make to get there, you have to go back to your first concept of money. How did your parents manage their finances? More importantly, what did they tell you about people who had it and people who didn't? Many people who struggle financially will justify their place in life by disavowing money as a whole. They will say that all rich people are terrible. If you grew up with people who told you your entire life that people who have money are this way, guess what? You're going to resist having. Your anxiety around the issue that you're self sabotaging is usually a reflection of your limiting belief. Maybe you associate being healthy with being vulnerable because you had a parent who was perfectly healthy when they suddenly fell ill. Maybe you aren't writing your magnum opus because you don't really want to write. You just want to be seen as successful because that will get you praise, which is typically what people revert to when they want acceptance but haven't gotten it. Maybe you keep eating the wrong foods because they soothe you, but you haven't stopped to ask what they have to keep soothing you from. Maybe you aren't really a pessimist but don't know how to connect with the people in your life other than by complaining to them. In order to reconcile this, you have to begin to challenge these pre existing ideas and then adopt new ones. You have to be able to recognize that not everybody with money is corrupt, not by a long shot. Even more importantly, that there are people who use their money in selfish ways. It is even more important that good people with great intentions are fearless in pursuit of acquiring this essential tool to create more time, opportunity, and wellness for themselves and others. You have to recognize that being healthy makes you less vulnerable, not more, and that criticism comes with creating anything for the public and isn't a reason to not do it. You have to show yourself that there are many different ways to self soothe that are more effective than unhealthy food choices, and that there are far better ways to connect with others than through negativity. Once you begin to really question and observe these pre existing beliefs, you begin to see how warped and illogical they were all along, not to mention distinctly holding you back from your ultimate potential. Well, I'll stop here for now and I'll pick up later on. And like I said, this is The Mountain Is You by Brianna Waste. I'm just at the first chapter, haven't moved on yet, and this really hits home. It's helping me, and I hope it helps you as well. Take care now. Bye. Bye, besties. Bye, cousins. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, leave a comment. Share, share, share. Love you.